Welcome everyone to our podcast. It's Zero here with
Slider.
And Decade.
So, time to talk about Ex-Aid.
We're going to start off with our general thoughts for the first 1 to 6 episodes. And then we'll go into more details of the newest episode, Ex-Aid episode 7 that just came out this week.
So, I guess I'll start for the general. It's been really good. Weakest episode has been the very first episode, which is both good and bad. But all the characters have been very entertaining, and there's lots of backstory going on. So that's just a base rundown. I like the writer designs. The designs are cool.
Yep.
I don't have much bad to say about the series so far.
One of the things I really enjoyed, even from the first episode, was the really electronic, fun background music that they've got going on so far. I think
the music is great.
Yeah, it brings back a lot of good Forza memories that had a lot of great tracks in it. I think my favorite theme so far is Brave's theme. It's super hype. I really liked episode 3 because as fun as one-on-one fights are, I think owning trash mobs of enemies is just so much fun. So episode 3 has been my favorite so far, with Brave, Ex-Aid, and Snipe. Yep. But yeah, so far so good.
You, Zero?
I would have to say pretty solid season so far. I mean, I'm impressed that most of the episodes are as good as they are, especially with how many new forms and writers we have running around.
Yeah, really.
It's like a really well done. I mean, it's really well paced, or at least for now.
Which is weird with all the forms, because they are pumping out the forms just as fast as they were with Ghost. The only difference is that it's split across 4 writers instead of 1.
That's interesting. I didn't even notice. I actually thought they were doing it a little faster, but now that you mentioned Ghost, I guess that makes sense. But
they may be going faster since it's one every episode instead of one every 2 episodes, right?
Yeah, and that's the other thing, is they're doing so many single episode stories. It's been a long time since we had okay, this needs 1 episode, so we're just gonna give it 1 episode instead of the standard 2-parter. Oh, and then we'll just throw in a single episode just for variety, I guess. For the characters, it's surprising, the little things make a difference, like how all the 4 writers talk to Emu differently. They specifically use different words, and that just, hints again to how they see the world and how they relate to Emu differently. Kirya always says pro, basically, or at least he did for a while, not so much the episode 7, but and Hiro always says intern, and then Snipe, who's Snipe?
Taiga, yeah. Taiga always just says genius gamer and stuff, right? So for Taiga it's basically rivalry. For Kirya, he's more sucking up to, sort of. And then Hiro, it's always he's looking down on Emu. But small things, just even the dialogue, how they move differently, their henshin pose is different. It reminds me of O-Ranger a little bit, where you see the intro and you think, okay, that's interesting, it's a fun intro, but they're never probably gonna bring that up. And then you see them fight, and they actually have the fighting style from the intro. Mm-hmm.
And that's interesting. It's so prevalent, or at least the few episodes I've seen, that if you change them all to the same color, you could tell who was in what suit. If their suits were exactly the same, you could tell which person was which, just because of their movement. They're that distinct. And this show is kind of giving me that same type of feel.
it's almost a little cartoony because people aren't this like, based in their character, but it's early on, so they're setting stuff up.
Right.
But they're pulling it off so well that these characters don't come off as caricatures. So yeah, I'm kind of impressed, like how well the music is good, the fights are decent, the storyline's good, they have good characters. It's amazing that they've managed to balance this all out. Like even the villains are decent. I mean, they're not perfect, but the thing is, like, even when they go down, you think for a second, like, it's still like, and then the next episode they come back to like, no, these guys are still competent. And like their like little hiccups aren't just because they're stupid, it's because they sort of have like internal conflict, but that's more stuff that happens this episode.
Right.
So yeah, the season's been pretty good so far. I guess that's enough with that recap. Let's continue to episode 7.
So this is episode 7 of Kamen Rider Ex-Aid, entitled The Deep Secret of Some Lie. I guess really the first scene is Kiria waking up in a hospital after getting his ass whooped by, was it Ginmu in episode 6? I think it was Ginmu. And,
I believe it was episode 5 because he was out for episode 6.
Oh yeah, that's right. He was out for 6. So yeah. And he wakes up and sees an old man next to him. Well, I guess he probably knew him by now, but we see the old man for the first time.
That's not what happens first, though.
Yeah, it was.
No, the first thing we see is he sees a nightmare.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Flashback.
I skipped to see the title. Oh yeah, that's right. There's the nightmare of his dead friend. So that's some way to start off an episode for real. And not skipping ahead to see the title. That's a good start to the episode. I'm just waking up in a hospital bed. Yeah. So yeah, that nightmare scene.
Yeah, it really is strange that I mean, before you finish watching the episode, right away you're faced with the truth that he lied about lying that his friend died. So right away it's pretty puzzling.
He said in 5 that he had a friend, and then he told Enmu that he didn't have a friend, and now he really did have a friend.
Yes.
It's very interesting, but again, it feeds into a more complex character than just a one-note bad guy or
Right.
asshole Kamen Rider that we usually get. Also, it shows that like he was a totally different type of person back then. Even in that small interaction, like he's so much more restrained now. Right? Like you could tell like this was in the past just because of how different he is. Even with just his friend, like, yeah, it's the double truths of like, yeah, this happened to my friend. And then I'm gonna tell you the truth, and then, you know what, instead of accepting your help, I'm just gonna lie about it again. So, I mean, it's gonna come up more in this episode, but like, that's one of the themes. I mean, it's setting up his character very well, even with just the opening scene.
So then he wakes up in the hospital, and we get him and the old man and the old man's daughter coming in. To come check it on the old man. So there's nothing really to say about that right yet, is there?
Well, I mean, yeah, we can say he's basically gonna be the new victim of
because
the
it does show the
virus.
Bugster virus, and that's about
And
it.
basically, his stress is somehow related to the fact that his daughter is managing his business while he's sick, and he doesn't want her to, so he's kind of being a jerk to her.
Yeah, but we don't quite get that much until a bit later in the episode.
Yeah, you do. I mean, away he's like, "Oh, hi, daughter. Oh, great, it's my daughter." So already we can see the.
But we don't know it's because of the business yet.
Yeah.
We just know that there's some sort of stress and.
Yeah, I mean,
Kiria.
that is a read, but I read it a little differently is uh, the old man's basically like a reflection of what Kirya is. Like, Kirya wakes up and the old man's super nice. And then, like, Kirya tells him to basically piss off, right? Then his daughter comes in and the old man, becomes really, like, kind of a jerk um, to his daughter. But as later on we see, it's basically the same thing as Kirya, where it's just basically setting up like a foil. Like, Kirya and this old man basically act the same. It's like, yeah, internally they're more nice and caring, like when nobody's looking, but when somebody comes too close, basically, not like close by, like, because he's interacting with, like, the old man's interacting with Kirya and they're strangers, he's fine. But when somebody gets like too close in the business, like in personal space, they act like a very specific way. It's like, they push people away.
Yeah.
It's not because they don't care for them. It's more just
To protect them.
To protect them, basically. Yeah, and like the daughter is basically doing the right thing. It's like, yeah, well, you cared about this company. You basically ran it. You're, like holding it together. I'm just here to update you on it. And he just reacts with like, you don't need to be around me. And like, he's so defensive, just like Kirya is pretty much all the time. So it's like a good foil, especially setting up like your victim, especially this early on, Like, this is one of those things that would happen like 20 episodes in, and it's like episode 7.
So yeah. Then we get Kirya calls the nurse and they wheel him into the CR. And Kirya tries to go into the CR, but they won't let him because they say he needs to recover. Which doesn't seem like a big deal to me because he is a... what's the term I'm looking for? The person who looks at dead bodies.
Oh, the coroner.
There we go.
Yep.
He's a coroner. He doesn't really need to be in there with an alive body, but he's kind of upset. I guess it's his own way of showing he's worried about the old man.
Yeah.
It is kind of interesting that, like, I guess Asuna, because she's in human form, it's like, out of, like, Emu is like, hey, you should get back, you're still sick, and Kiryu is like, I'm fine, but, like, Asuna is straight up, like, get the hell out of here, basically. It's just one of those interesting things, like, I wonder how much of that is, like, her own personality, or if it's just because she was programmed that way, so it's, like, bringing it out even more in her, because you gotta remember, like, he's one of the, out of the 4 writers, he's the one who blackmailed himself into getting a driver, right? And, like, Dan basically gave him a driver that was rigged, like, okay, you want a driver, here you go, but,
You're gonna be a bike.
yeah, you're gonna be a bike, like, good luck actually being a threat to me. Kira thinks he's smart, but, like, Dan's just a little bit smarter here. Like, so his plan kind of backfires. But, again, because Poppy is basically created by, like, Dan's company.
I think the real question is how much is Poppy independent of her programming? How much free will does she have? How much of an AI does she have? How much does the base programming have control over her? There's still a lot of questions that may never get answered.
I mean, that is a possibility. That's what I was also saying. It's like, maybe right now she's coming off so harsh is because, like, Dan really doesn't like her, and, like, it's in her programming to be like, hey, this guy, don't trust this guy, so she's projecting really hard. But hopefully as the show goes on, you see more and more, like, she's, like, beyond, like, she seems fairly independent right now.
Right.
But, like, as the show goes on, hopefully you see more and more her just, like, pushing against her programming, which, again, would lead to, basically, Poppy is the only one who has a Showa Rider character arc right now. Because, like, the standard writer thing is, like, I was created by random nefarious corporation or entity, and then I'm gonna turn against them and fight against them, and, like, what better than, like, an AI who has, basically, because right now, the two biggest bad guys are Ex-Aid and Black Ex-Aid, right? Like, what do you choose? You know, your friend or love interest? Which basically boils down to the standard thing, like, do you follow Shocker or do you rebel against?
What was it? Am I just remembering wrong that I don't recall them ever saying Poppy was ever specifically created by the Genom Corporation?
Well,
Was it?
she's a character from Do Re Mi Fa Beat.
No, good point.
Yeah, I mean, I had this impression that they made her like the same time they made the drivers. So, because we know she was already, I mean, she's been active for 5 years, we know that, so that probably explains why she's a little more independent than you'd think she would be by
But
this
we
point.
do know that drivers were there 5 years ago, so you could be right still.
Yeah,
With the
so, I mean, that would explain why she's a little more independent now, but she still has ways to go. I think, like, they're probably using the same tech at this point.
I'm sure we'll find out more. Then we cut over to the villains talking, and Dan says you're not going to get the bug visor anymore. And Graphic gets a fail set. He's like, Laser knows who you are. And Dan just gets snippy, and there's a bunch of bad guys arguing. Typical Toku. I don't see much there except typical bad guys saying, people know who you are. Yep, they can't prove it.
Well, one thing
Seems
that's
to be very common.
kind of strange to me is why does Graphite have a human form?
Yeah, that's been bugging me ever since we first saw said human
If he's
form.
a bugster, which is from the video game, yeah,
Right.
and he doesn't look like most of the other bugsters. He's like got a very organic form.
Right. I mean, with Poppy, I could even say she is from a game and she has a human form, but she doesn't have to use something like the bug visor to transform.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, we know Graphite is the last surviving bugster, basically, from the outbreak 5 years ago, so we don't know what the original bugsters were like. Because
True.
the original game, like, Poppy could be one of the 10 games that were cured, you know, or wasn't, like, fully infected. And so either Graphite is just pure AI, like, you know, he's doing something from Drive, where, like, the AIs just have, like, human bodies once they came out, sort of. Or, like, gain them. Or, like, he's one of the original infected, and their infection worked a little differently, where, you know, like, once they take over, you know, they, like, took over the human body fully. Or maybe it's, like, some weird hybrid where
Or maybe that's how the virus still works, is once they take over fully, they take over the human body, because we haven't seen a fully infected bugster yet.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to yet. We don't know how this works yet. I mean, hopefully that happens, because it's going to be one of those points where, like, it's straight up going to be, like, against Emu's
I hope
character.
it doesn't pull a wizard where they get so close to them despairing and it never happens, and it's just... It would be so nice to see the writer fail once and show they're not infallible.
Well, I mean, Wizard did sort of fail, but, like, he had, like, backup that saved his ass. And the other thing is, like, Wizard's whole thing was, like, yeah, this horrible thing happened to me, I'm never freaking failing again. Also, you never saw, like, the 6 months of Haruto just trying.
Right.
Right? Like, because it cuts to first episode and there are more phantoms. Were they were created 6 months ago, or were they the ones that he failed to save? You don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, with the villains just talking, it's one of those interesting things where it's like Graphite seems to be, like, you know, butting heads with the two for a bit, but he still listens. So I wonder how long this goes on before he goes all full Phoenix and says, screw
Right.
this, I'm just gonna do my own thing.
Right.
That would be interesting. Like, I mean, he might be the first one to die. He might become a good guy. I don't know. It's too damn early.
I would say he would be the first one to die were it not for a different fact. that I'm not going to quite go into now.
It's still interesting that like you would think Dan, because he's the CEO, would be calling the shots, but it's what's his name, Pallid, the other kid.
I don't remember.
Yeah, it's P something. I wrote it down somewhere.
I want to say Paradox, but that's something else, I think. Let's see. The internet is a marvel.
I think you said it right. It's just the spelling that's kind of weird.
It's just Paradox?
No, it's like Paradox without the X, pretty much.
Parada? Yeah, let's see.
Or whatever, it's P something. It's interesting that like we're showing that the team is splitting apart. It's like episode 7. So it's one of those things where it's like, it's really good right now, but this is the first arc. There's something gonna happen. Like,
Right.
once Graphite goes down, because like he might be the first one to go down, or maybe something else happens. Point is, like, Dan or Graphite are probably gonna be the ones to go down first. Then the third guy is probably gonna be like next arc boss. But even then, like, that's 2/3 of the way through the show. Or I mean, like, only the second, like the middle of the show.
Right.
What I hope, like, the weird thing is, like, it's got such good pacing now. I hope it doesn't start dragging. Like, Coast had, like, decent pacing at the beginning. In the middle, it was good, and then last arc was terrible. I hope that doesn't happen to the show because it's been surprisingly solid.
There we are. It's Parado. I quote, according to Google Translate, yeah, it's Paradox without the X.
So I was right.
Yeah. Okay, then the next scene was the operation where they called Hero in to do it, but Emu didn't want to let him do it alone, and they transformed and fought the bug. I'm just summarizing the whole fight scene. They fought the Bugster, and they went level 3, and it split into the two. Well, it split into the two Bugster with the 2 gas shots, and they went level 3.
They start the fight in the lab.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
like a super far underground, but yeah. So they had to do a stage change.
Right, because the doctor gets mad at him, then they fight it.
Yeah.
He splits. They go level 3. Ginmu shows up.
Oh, whoa.
Well, I mean, one thing is that it's another double infection.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Thought this was the first one, but again, we're
No,
seeing
this
like
was just
Emily.
the first we saw split.
Yeah, Emily and Hiro Henshin, and like they're still running with the whole like, yeah, these two are gonna rub off each other, and like that's basically what has to happen for them to become like better human beings.
Right.
I don't know. I still hope, like, okay, that's the first arc. Going forward, I want them to be Rider 1 and 2
Right.
by the end of this. Or,
Right.
I mean, actually, I was going to say more like Kabuto and Gatak, but yeah, that was not.
The colors
nice.
are kind of the same. A reddish color and a bluish color.
Yeah. That would be fun. I mean, like at the end, that was kind of actually that's not true. Kabuto's ending was kind of nonsense, but like before the end arc with Kabuto, they were good. Actually, like Coast had pretty good like secondaries where they're like, yeah, we're a team. Let's be heroes instead of assholes with belts. It's weird seeing. I mean, like, it's nice to see double henshins. I hope it doesn't fall apart. Like, I hope there's no stupid fights. Like, yeah, they might disagree, but I don't want them to fight. Also, the twin dragon thing totally reminds me in Wizard when, like, Haruto and Nito go into, like, the Underworld, I think, together for the first time. And they're fighting, like, the twin dragon thing. Or is that in the movie?
I don't remember this.
One's like a gold dragon, one's like a metal one. And
I'm pretty sure that was in the show, yeah.
Yeah, and they're connected, and they beat it by tying it up. Or, like, flying it around itself, so it ties itself up in a knot. this like Buckster basically reminded me of like a smaller version of that. Anyway, Slider, now you can talk about your fight scene.
So yeah, it's just a normal fight scene. They fight it. It splits into the two remaining gashettes that were stolen. The Giri Giri Shanbara and the Jet Combat Bugster, who have the gashettes inserted into their heads.
Did anybody catch the references?
Which ones?
Giri Giri Chambara. Sword fighting game.
Was there some joke about Shinken in there? I just thought it was funny that it was Shambara.
Oh, I don't know. I have no idea. But basically, that's like a reference to Bushido Blade. That's what I'm thinking.
I just think Shambara because of the Shinken opening.
Yeah, okay. In Bushido Blade, basically it's not the second Bushido Blade, the first Bushido Blade. They're both on the PS1, but the first one's way better. What happens is it's a fighting game like Soul Calibur. Basically, think that, except made by Square. Wait, were they together? Whatever. Point is, what the company Square Enix that is now Square Enix. Yeah, I don't know if it was Square or Enix.
Squaresoft?
Yeah, probably Squaresoft. Basically, this storyline, it's not important, but the story, not important for this episode, but the storyline is basically, you're part of like an elite, like, assassins guild, and then basically you decide to leave one day, and you gotta kill basically all of your teammates, because, nobody gets out alive, right?
Right.
Like, once you're in for life, so the only way to be free is basically from that. But the interesting mechanic is, you have 3 stances, which is one button, switch by, 3 buttons, and then you just have an attack and like a parry one. I don't think there's a block, but the interesting thing is, like, if you hit like your opponent, and this is like an early 3D fighter, but if you hit your opponent, like, say in the legs, like their legs get crippled, they can still like fight, like crawl and like swing their sword and stuff, but like they'll be down. Or if you get like a good critical hit, like say in the head or something, or like, what? You're not supposed to attack them from behind, but you can. But like basically, if you swing first and get a good hit in, like, one hit KO.
Yep.
It's intense, but it's really, really good, especially for such an early PS1 game.
I really like the design, or I guess the overall design of the Giri Giri Chambara Bugster guy. I mean, the shoulder pads are just awesome. He's got the Tengu mask on one and some sort of wolf creature like crawling on his other shoulder.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
And just his overall posture with the sword, it is like totally different from, I don't know, I guess most of the monsters we've seen recently. He's like super poised and stuff.
I'm kind of amazed how much like personality they can like
yeah,
come
seriously.
up with. Just like, it's a base suit with like shoulder pads, with like new shoulder pads, but like good suit acting, man.
Yeah, he doesn't even make any sounds at all. He's just completely silent.
Yeah.
Even when Genmu shows up to interrupt the fight, silent.
I keep wondering how, like, okay, in the show it's good, like, it's good and dramatic. It's like, oh shit, he showed up again, right? But in like real life, like, how could you miss this guy? Like, I know they have stage select, but you would still see like all those effects and crap if that's happening. Or if he's just like walking by, like, how could you miss him walking into the scene? Like, if he came from behind you, it's one thing, but he's always from the side. It's like, what are you guys doing?
In the split second you turn away, he shows up.
Split second, like, he has like a drone watching the fight, like, okay, ready, they're not looking, open the gate, just jump in. I would sort of buy that if I was... One of those good things in Gaim is, like, they have those, like, dimensional tears things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, with the zippers, I'm like, okay, I could buy people just, like, jumping out of nowhere through that thing. But like in Ex-Aid, every time you use anything, there's like a million particle effects. How do you miss that? But yeah, fight happens.
And Ginmu interrupts. They all get away. And then we see Taiga,
Yeah.
with his stethoscope phone thing. Target lost, so apparently they can track him somehow. And what's his line again? So it has begun. So whatever that means. It could just mean the fight against the hunt for the last two Gashats, or it could mean something else totally different.
Yeah, Kira is interesting. I mean, I guess that answers the question of like, how did Dan know where the hell they were? But if like Taiga can just watch it off his stethoscope, I guess he was doing the same thing because he made them.
Right.
Yeah. Also, it's weird that like the Bugsters keep having these Gashats. Like, okay, did Graphite go and chuck like two Gashats into this old man and infect him with
That's
the
what they
Bugster?
said. They infected it with the Giri Chambara and whatever the other one virus is what all they said. So I guess somehow he did.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny every time we cut to like Taiga and he's looking at like his 4-minute report. So I'm like, oh great, is this what you do all day? Stare at like real life bars? I mean, I know he's doing the whole blackjack thing, but I haven't seen him like take on cases. I mean, I guess it's a
Right.
little too early, but still.
I think going back when he first meets, well, not when he first meets, but when he first encounters Graphite in the show, Graphite basically tells him that he's a dead man.
Yeah.
So he's probably researching how to save himself or something like that.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because something's wrong
I mean,
with
then
him.
again,
Something gave him all that white hair.
You don't know how like experimental the drivers were early on. I mean, he could just be dying on normal causes, but
Yeah.
that would be interesting.
That would be lame.
What if he's just dying normally?
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of the Date from O's thing again, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess after the fight scene, we go back to the CR headquarters where we find Curious let himself in.
Yes, it was so hard to get in.
Yeah, you dropped your forward.
That scene was so well played, I could actually almost believe that would happen in real life.
Yeah.
I mean, in real life, you'd go back and pick up your folder, but then again, like, Kira would have had enough time to go and, like, hide somewhere if he really wanted to.
Then Curious says he wants to tell the mystery of the Bugstar and says once again the thing about his friend. And M calls him out on the lie again. And Hero calls him a liar for the graphite being Black Ex-Aid. So they're all getting mad at him.
Yeah, that sucks.
Calling him a liar.
I also love how, like, they all ignore him. It's like, you shouldn't be in here. And then they all just leave.
Right. Leave him in there. So we all get that scene. Then we get the flash. They're telling the patient not to stress too much. Typical. Happens every episode. Then we flash back to Kyria and his friend saying, "You have the Bugster disease." Which, as we find out later, isn't quite true.
What? No, his friend did have it.
I thought they said he didn't have it and he lied to him.
He had it, but he died of some sort of accident.
Yeah, basically what happened was Syria found this Ministry of Health document somehow, and it confirmed that his friend was infected with the Bugster virus and that this virus is life-threatening. And then his friend like kind of has like a breakdown
Probably
And
ran
later
into
on,
traffic or something.
yeah, it could have happened. Like, you don't know what happened. It could have been like a little while later, or it could have been days later. Who knows? Um, Point is, it cuts to Kirya and his. You see him by his friend's dead body. Um, which again kind of screws him over later on, because like even if he tells the truth, like the truth is more complicated.
Mm-hmm.
So like when he says, yeah, the Bugster virus, like I'm investigating that for my friend, he's telling the truth, but for everybody else just reading, information off a page, it looks like he's lying.
Right.
But this flashback also shows, I wouldn't say like pathological liar side. Like he's not that bad that he's believing his own lies, um, but it shows like why Kirya plays like holds on to his information so badly. Like he doesn't want to convey it, and he also like doesn't like telling the truth because he kind of basically has internalized like ignorance is bliss basically when it comes to other people, but for himself, like he'd rather keep people away, but he'd also rather get to the bottom of things, which kind of shows like years down the line, like that's what shaped him into this person, right? Like
Right.
telling the truth didn't really help the situation, so like internalizing that, he's kind of become almost like this like two-faced guy, even though he's really not that bad.
Mm-hmm. Next scene is the dad telling the daughter not to bother with the business anymore.
Yeah. Decade, you have anything about that?
I mean, it's exactly what you said. He's a complete parallel to Kiria, and just like people initially want to help you, but if you push them away, they're gonna get kind of sick of you. And if that's what you want, well, that's what you're gonna get.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those like this show has been really good at showing that people do not super nice things. I guess that's the nicest way of saying it. Not because they're like mean or harsh. It's just because they care, and like adult actions are kind of harsh and weird from the outside, but like if you gotta look past that to see what's actually going on. So again, a perfect parallel to Kyria, but in this show, I mean, it's surprisingly more mature than
Yeah,
the
it
standard
doesn't feel
stuff
as
we've
much
been
of a
getting.
kid show as some other
This
writers have.
I know, especially with like how like the earlier episodes start out with like the couple, and they broke apart, and why? Because they cared about each other. I mean, like the wife to be basically cared too much about this person, and that just gave her too much doubt. Like no, I mean, I wouldn't have seen that coming in like the last couple writer shows we had. But again, a message like that, and this one where it's like just because you care about a person doesn't mean you're gonna always be honest with them or keep them close. Sometimes the safest thing is just to push them away, which is not smart or nice, but people definitely do that.
Then we got Kiria telling Imu that sometimes it's not always the best to tell people the truth, which, yeah, I think leads into the thing that the truth led his friend to do something.
Yeah, he's kind of revealing his MO there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically, I think, the first time you see like Kiria totally being so aggressive. Normally he's kind of got like this air of almost like a con man to him. So like you can't trust him, but like he's not gonna do anything to you physically. But here it's like it hit it struck a nerve. Basically, what's going on right here. So that, like even he is human, he can't even hide his feelings all the time.
Then we get dad go into the Bugster attacking mode, and they say he probably went after the daughter, which we do find the Bugster went after the daughter. And Amu is wary of transforming and working with Kiria because of episode 5, which I can't really blame him.
Yeah, I mean, it's understandable. Thoughts, Decade?
I guess then Hiro comes in and says,
Oh,
I've looked into
wait.
your past.
Sorry. I was just gonna say, very interesting shot. Did you notice that?
Which one?
Like, when the Buckster is, like, chasing the daughter, it's like, it's in front of her, it's just normal cam. Uh, that you see, I don't, do you even see the Buckster chasing her when you're in front of her? And then it cuts behind her, and it's like the Buckster's point of view.
Yeah.
Did you notice that? Like, that was an interesting shot. It's one of those, like, weird shots that happens, like, in every Rider show, like, early on. Like, they try one random. Like, I remember one in Wizard where they, like, put it on, like, a remote-controlled car and drove it, like, past, like, you know, like, their patio furniture type setup that they always use, like, the white chairs and tables, while, like, Wizard was fighting. And so it got this, like, weird low-angle thing. It was interesting, but they never used
And
it again.
I think some writers have taken to using drone filming too.
Yeah. I wonder if they're gonna continue with this. I mean, it's interesting that they're always experimenting. It's nice.
Right.
Because it was a cool shot, because, like, you normally never see it from, like, the monster's point of view. I mean, you don't see it that often.
Yeah.
But that was a cool shot.
So then Hiro comes in, says, be wary of Kiria, says, I've looked into Kiria's past because he had asked his father to, and I forgot to mention that because I skipped past that line. Goes level 2 and starts fighting the Giri Champare Bugster, which, typical Brave. Nothing to say there, I don't think. Then Genom comes in and starts beating up on Brave with him, and Imu decides to trust Kiria, and they do a dual transform. Which I always enjoy seeing dual transforms.
Yeah, they're pretty fun. I mean, I especially like Kiria's one because it's this awesome kick thing. I'm like, for a Rider show, it's been pretty long since we actually had, like, a right, you know, like some kind of kicking henshin.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we get Imu on the bike. I still love that the bike is a rider himself. Imu on the bike fighting the Giri Chambara, puts the Bakso Gasha in the sword, which I thought was kind of interesting. And they destroy the Giri Chambara Bugster and get the game. Which, it's typical, destroy the monster, get the game for these level 3 episodes.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, was that the first time I've seen lasers, like, finisher? Because I don't remember the wheels
Well,
and all that.
they did a finisher in episode whatever. They put the Bakso in the Kimiwaza holder on the bike.
Yeah, I don't remember it being like that. This was a little closer to
they didn't ever put it in a weapon. They put it in a slot.
This looked a lot closer to, like, Drives.
Yeah,
Rider kick. Like, I mean, if Emu jumped off the bike and attacked, it basically would have been.
Then we got the Yuri Chambara transformation, which gives Kiria, Laser a humanoid form, which I really like. It's very armored. And so it's very robotic.
Even
it's like a transformer.
Then, though, we go back to how much of a disadvantage he's at. He can't put that Gashot in by himself. He had to have Emu do it. So even though he's got this new shiny Gashot, can't really use it on his own.
We've seen M and Hero go straight from level 1 to level 3, so we'll probably be doing the same.
I mean, yeah, I think you can just put it in the belt and go. Is as long as you don't go level 2, then you're screwed.
I love the center mass on the back of the suit. The center mass of the bike. It's just like all the gears and the motors and everything are still there. All just on his back.
Yeah, it's a pretty nice suit. I mean, if it didn't have like, again, it's one of those like one complaints of Ex-Aid. It's like, like the eyes aren't bad, but like if the eyes were compound or if the eyes weren't there, these suits would look even better. But like, I don't hate it. It's a
then
really
we get
nice
sorry.
form.
Yeah, I really do like it.
It's surprisingly nimble for how big it looks. I mean,
It seems bigger than any of the other forms we've had so far. Even Beat Action or Robots Action or Action Robot or whatever it is, and the three level threes we've had so far looks even bulkier than those. And so we get Kirya's determination to unmask Ginham as Dan. Ginham goes level 3. Laser pulls out the new weapon, Fire Toys, and they start fighting. Oh yeah, and then we have Snipe fighting the Jet Combat Gamer, which is going to be a thing for next episode.
Yeah, I kind of like how that's in just the background. It's like, yeah, there's more stuff going on than what's on screen right now.
Yeah.
Right. So we get back to the Dan and Kirya fight. Kirya pulls out his finisher. In the midst of the big explosion where they can't see, Dan loses his rider form and Parado comes in and says, "Trust me on this. I've got this. Give me your belt and your gas shot." He doesn't actually say that, but pretty much. And when the fireball cleared, it was just Parado wearing the belt. So I thought that was a nice switch around.
It also shows that the villains are like clever enough that they don't have to pull like some crazy schemes like, yeah, alright, this is all I need to do to screw them up. Like kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. Good play. Just like, yeah, if I just swap out places, they're just gonna stop trusting Laser. And they don't even know who the hell I am, so they can't do anything about it. Because then nobody suspects Dan, so.
Then Parado walks back and gives Dan his belt and gives a line that has more meaning to me, who looks at the toy catalogs and looks at the spoilers, than it does to the people who try and keep it fresh. There's the one line, "Fate is like a puzzle," which means quite a bit for those who have seen the second quarter toy catalog.
Yeah. Well, one thing I want to say about the new, I guess, Laser's new form. One is that I really dig the background music that was playing while he was fighting Gen. Yeah, that's definitely my second favorite. I still love the Brave theme.
I can't wait for the soundtrack next year.
But yeah, it's gonna be awesome. But I did feel that thematically, his new form is kind of weak, because I mean, he's supposed to be a samurai, and he has like an auto fire bow, kind of like Chalice, and which turns into two kind of
scythes.
pickaxes.
Scythes,
yeah.
I think that's what the S is from.
Yeah. So I mean, they're cool, but it did just slightly bother me that he's supposed. I mean, we see that the Giri Giri Chambara Bugster was all stoic and samurai-like, and then he's kind of...
Yeah, I can see how that's slightly annoying.
But I mean, I still love the form. It's pretty awesome.
Right.
Man, Dan must be getting pissed. Like every single level he kicked his ass.
Yeah.
Then we got Hero revealing that his friend did not, in fact, die to the Bugster virus. It was an accident. He ended up getting mad at Kirya because Kirya said he wasn't going to lie. And Kirya reminiscing, saying, if I hadn't told the truth, maybe he wouldn't have died. So it's just all around not trusting of Kirya. And Kirya's remorse of lying. Lying and not lying.
I just gotta say, it's kind of sad at this point. It's like,
It is.
when are you finally going to just? When are the barriers going to come down? It's so sad watching them
I
like
mean, yeah,
watching Emu giving him chances, and then watching him wanting to give Emu a chance, and then it's like, no, I better just keep to myself,
and then without
keep the
he
lies
doesn't
going.
even try and say he doesn't even try and correct it. He just says, "Hey, I guess I took you for a ride." It's just like
Yeah,
there's so much chance to reconcile. I hope he gets better.
but it's good that we have this much inner conflict.
Yeah, I mean, I love how it's not like aggressive, like, yeah, they're gonna fight about it. It's just like, it's mistrust.
Right.
You know, that's what's keeping them apart. And like, as soon as that gets cleared up, they're just gonna be a team again. Which is a better thing, as opposed to normally when it's like, oh, I'm a secondary rider. Yeah, I'm gonna try to kill you. In like 5 episodes, we're gonna be best friends.
Yeah,
Right.
You know, like, this is better. And the other thing with Kiryu is it just shows that, like, yeah, he's smart, but that doesn't mean he's gonna win. You know, he got outplayed there. Like, he was gonna be like, oh, like, yeah, I know who you are. You know, we're gonna kick your ass, and then, you know, everything's gonna go my way. And then one thing out of place, and you know, you can make all the
So
right moves, you can still lose. That's what
right.
happened. And then, like, Emu, even like you can see like Emu's heart's almost sort of breaking. I mean, it's not that bad, but like you can see like he's getting like wounded, and he's getting fed up with this crap. It's like, man, I keep trusting you, and you keep screwing this up.
yep,
Which is sad because Dan's point is kind of coming more and more true, especially after that like fight. Which, you know, that like Emu, like his naivete like kept him good. Like what's happening that now it's getting stripped away. So like, you know, I wonder what's gonna happen like midway through or something like, because you know he's gonna be good at the beginning, good at the end, but like midway through, you know, shit's gonna go down.
Right.
Um, but it also shows that like people like Kirya just reacted like people normally do, which is like, you know, if they're hit by like a hard truth, they just fall back to what they know. And for Kirya, it's just like, you know, fly solo, you know, just lie.
Right.
When he was doing that, it reminded me of Takumi, because remember when he goes back, like he comes back to Tokyo and then he goes back to like that bar or whatever he used to work at. Like the owner's like, okay, dude, I know you didn't take the money. It was the part timers. Like, you know, you can just admit it. Like you didn't do it. It's like, no, it's just me, because you know that's Takumi's thing. It's like he doesn't. It's hard for him to get close to people. Same thing with Kiryu, you know. Like people, even though telling the truth is better, it's not gonna. It's hard for people to overcome their own internal conflicts, I guess. So nice that this reminded me of flies, I guess.
Yeah. Um. So that's it for this episode. The next episode is Men Fly High, where Taiga gets his level 3 form. So overall, I thought this episode was pretty good.
yeah, agreed. It was pretty fun, pretty emotional. Just overall, we were taken for a ride.
Yep.
Yeah, I would have to agree. This was a very good episode, but then again, Kiryu is my favorite, so so I was actually kind of slightly concerned because last week's episode was a little lackluster. Like it wasn't bad, it was still good, but the show's been like good to great.
Yeah,
Last week was like, okay, that was a slight letdown with that resolution, or like showing what happened, but um, this episode was great. You know, I hope this show just keeps being this good. It's gonna be one of the greats, man.
definitely.
So I think that's it for this episode. We'll see y'all next time.
Yep, thanks for listening.